Okay, welcome back, and we are continuing with understanding number. The topic for this video is understanding time and how to change time within different presentations and adjustments depending on the question. We start off with understanding what the 12-hour and 24-hour clocks are. There is different way of representing time. You see the 12-hour clock. Um you can see it on an analog clock with numbers like that, or you can see it with digital clocks as well. So it could be on either things as well. Okay, so what is 12 a.m.? It's basically 12 at midnight, and in a 24-hour clock, it's going to be represented with four zeros. Now, observe the difference. There are just four numbers here. Sometimes you also have a colon in the middle. It's not necessary to have that. You can just have it without that as well. So 2:30 is therefore 02:30. Okay, so all of these remain the same. 11:15 is also 11:15. If it's AM, they remain the same. But at 12 noon, it becomes 12, and then it changes from there on. From 2:30 p.m. is no longer the same on the 24-hour clock. It's 14:30. So you start counting from 00 and you go up to 24 on a 24-hour clock. For a 12-hour clock, you count up till 12 noon and then you restart. And instead of AM, you write PM. AM and PM mean anti-meridiem and post-meridiem. They are just terms that you need to sort of know. You're never going to be asked that. It means before midday and it means after midday. Okay. On the exam, you may be asked to change a particular number, a particular reading from a 24-hour clock or 12-hour clock to a 24-hour clock, or from a 24-hour clock to a 12-hour clock. So that is something that you should be able to do. Now we'll follow these rules. It says to change from 12 hours to 24-hour clock, follow these steps. Now there are different rules for AM and PM. That is something that you need to understand. If the time is AM, add a zero at the beginning. If necessary, to write as four figures and drop the AM. Okay, so you just need to convert it into a four-figure number and write it as and drop the AM. If the time is PM, add 1200 to it and drop the PM. So what am I going to do? I'm going to say that this first one is 8:15 a.m. So this will simply become 0815, and I'm going to drop the AM. I've converted it into a 24-hour clock. For PM, I see that it's 2:45 p.m. So I'm going to add 1200 to it. 1200 added to it will make it 14:45, and I will drop the PM as well. So that's a 24-hour clock for 2:45. This is a basic adjustment that you should be able to do. And I could also ask you the reverse adjustment to change from the 24-hour clock to a 12-hour clock. Follow these steps. If the time is less than 1200, add AM and remove any zero at the beginning. If the time is later than 1200, subtract 1200 and add PM. Okay, so I will have to check whether this time is less than 1200. Yes, it's less than 1200, so I'm just going to say that this becomes 8:00 AM. That's plain and simple. This one is more than 1200. 1514 is more than 1200, so I'm going to subtract 1200 from it and say that this becomes 314, and I'm going to write PM with it. Now there could be a colon, or there could be one dot. That's your choice. It's not something that's carved in stone. You won't be penalized for that. Okay, the important thing about these reading times is the time zones. Now, as you know, the world is divided into different time zones, so that for example, when the local time in Lahore is 900, the local time is Tokyo is 1300. This means that Tokyo is therefore 4 hours ahead of Lahore, or Lahore is 4 hours behind Tokyo, which means that the sun will rise at different times in different locations. So that is what you are adjusting for, and this is because of the rotation of the earth. So the rotation of the earth leads to time zones, and then we sort of get confused as to what time is where. So we're going to try to handle those questions now in a bit. Let's first look at this. It says a train leaves Edinburgh at 8:45 and arrives in London at 15:15. how long does the journey take? Whenever you have questions like this, it's always important to count step by step. Don't rush through these questions, they make it more complicated. Don't try to calculate directly that I'm going to count from 8 to 15 and see what, and then I'm going to, adjust the minutes and so on. The simple way of doing these questions is to say that from 8:45 to 900 there are 15 minutes. Okay, you don't, on the exam you don't need to write everything down, I'm just doing this to explain to you. Then from 0900 to 10 there is 1 hour. From 10 to 11 there is another hour. Okay, now I can sort of jump a little and say that there are from till 15 there are 4 hours. Okay, and then from 15 to another 15 minutes. So what do I have on total? So yeah, okay, I could have jumped in the middle as well. That's 6 hours, and that's a total of 30 minutes. So count step by step. Go to the nearest complete hour first and then move on from there. It's easier to count. It's easier to count forward rather than backwards. We will have to do both of those in any case, and we'll look at more questions as we go on. Okay, this one says, now that was a 24-hour clock. Now this is the same kind of type of question on a 12-hour clock. It says the television starts at 6:55 p.m. and runs for 1 hour and 10 minutes. What time does it finish? So again, I'm going to do this. I'm going to say that first I'm going to 6:55 and plus 1 hour. So that gives me what? It gives me 7:55 p.m. Then I'm going to say that I want to add what? I want to add 10 minutes. Okay, adding 10 minutes makes it 8:05 p.m. So add it step by step. Break the hours in minutes and add them separately. Don't try to rush through these questions. You often get the answer wrong, and it's a valuable 1 mark that you would essentially be losing. Okay, moving on. It says the time difference between Paris and New York on a day in summer is 6 hours, with Paris ahead of New York. Okay, Paris is ahead of New York. If it is 10:23 in Paris on Friday, what time is it in New York? So Paris is ahead. So what do you want to do? You want to go back 6 hours. So you're going to say that you need to subtract 1 hour first and see what happens. 9:23. Okay, so that seems like a logical answer. I could just, then subtract 5 hours together because I need to make a total of 6 hours. So I can say that this becomes 9 minus 5 gives me 4:23. Okay, so that's the time in New York on Friday. Why? Because Paris is ahead of New York. Okay, so that's the New York time. Then it says if it is 11:15 p.m. in New York on Monday, what time is it in Paris? Okay, so Paris is ahead. So I'm going to say that I need to now start adding. Okay, now start adding. So I need to add 6 hours. Now this gets a little tricky here. Let's look at this. Okay, when I add 1 hour to it, it becomes 12:15 and AM. I've gone on to the next day. So the next day must have started in Paris. I need to add another 6 hours to it. Now adding in a 12-hour clock is a little tricky. I'm going to say that plus 5 hours, it restarts. Okay, so I'm going to say that it's going to, if I spend 5 more hours, it's going to become 5:15 AM. So I'm going to say that it's 5:15 AM in Paris on Tuesday. It's no longer Monday in Paris, it's Tuesday in Paris. Okay. Then the next question says the TV program lists shows that a film begins at 21:55. Okay, 21:55. the film lasts for about 100 minutes. Okay, now I need to know what 100 minutes are. If you are good at calculations, you would have already figured this out, that it's 1 hour and 40 minutes. But if you're not, your calculator can do the calculations for you. I'm going to tag some videos here that help you convert time in minutes and hours using calculators. You can use those videos, or this can come up on paper 1 as well, which means that you need to convert it as well. We're going to understand the conversions in the next video, but briefly here, that 60 minutes is an hour. So if I subtract 60 minutes, it's 1 hour and 40 minutes left. Okay, it says at what time will it end. Okay, so I'm going to add 1 hour to it, so that makes it 22:55. Okay, then 22:55 plus 40 minutes. Okay, now I cannot add 40 minutes altogether because it's changing at in 5 minutes. In 5 minutes it becomes 2300. Then I'm going to add how many more minutes? I'm going to say that I'm going to add 35 more minutes. I've broken up the 40 minutes into 5 plus 35 because it was bothering me. Okay, so this is 23:35. Okay, so the show ends at 23:35. Moving on, it says the time difference between Brunei and London is 7 hours. So when it is 1900 in Brunei, it is 1200 in London. Okay, so Brunei is ahead of London. When it is 3:30 in London, what 3:30 in Brunei, what time is it in London? So again, I sort of have to go back. Why? Because London is behind Brunei, so a little tricky again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that, okay, I have to subtract. Okay, I'm going to subtract 3 hours first. Why? Because that seems convenient. 00:30. How many hours do I need to convert? How many hours do I need to subtract more? I'm going to say that I'm going to go one by one now. And what happens is now 1 more hour leads me to 23:30 on the previous day. Okay, I'm turning back, so it's 23:30 on the previous day. I subtracted 1 more hour. I've already subtracted 4. I need to subtract 3 more hours. So 23:30 minus 3 will give me 20:30 on the previous day. So in London, it's the previous day and the time is 20:30, while in Brunei, it's 7 hours ahead. So it's 3:30 in Brunei on the next day. Okay, you need to mention whether it's the previous day or the next day. If the day is given, then you also need to mention that, like we did in the previous question. Okay, then it says an aircraft leaves Brunei at 6:30 p.m. local time. It arrives in Dubai at 10 p.m. local time. Okay, now the aircraft would have traveled between time zones. The flight took 7.5 hours. Now you see the difference between these two times is 7, not 7.5 hours. Calculate the time difference between Dubai and Brunei. So let's say you were flying from Brunei, so your watch on your hand had the Brunei time on it. Okay, even when you land, if you not changed your watch manually, it's an analog watch, you cannot it doesn't update automatically. So the time on your watch is still the Brunei time. What would your watch be showing you? Let's try to find that out. So if it was 6:30 p.m. okay, and you have to add 7 hours to it. So again, 7.5 hours to it. So again, I'm going to break it up because it's already 6:30 p.m. So let's say I add 5 hours to it, so that it becomes 11:30 p.m. Why? Because I know that the clock changes at 12, so I will have to accommodate that. Then I add 11:30, 1 hour, so it becomes 12:30 a.m. now. Okay, it's 12:30 a.m. in the night. Your clock is showing you that when 6 hours have passed. I don't want 6 hours. I want how many hours? I want 7.5 hours. So I'm going to move one more hour and say that this becomes 1:30. Then 1:30 a.m. Sorry, this was a.m. and I had 30 minutes. Okay, so that becomes 2 a.m. So your clock is showing you that it's 2 a.m. But when the aircraft lands, the pilot announces that it is 10 p.m. local time, which means that you have to move your clock back. While it's 2 a.m. in Brunei, it's 10 p.m. in Dubai, which means that Dubai is behind Brunei, or Brunei is ahead of Dubai. So I'm going to say that how far ahead is Brunei? And this looks like 4 hours. Okay, so the difference is 4 hours. I hope everybody can see that. 4 hours. Dubai is behind Brunei. Okay, Dubai is 4 hours behind Brunei. That's the time difference between Dubai and Brunei. Moving on, this is sort of one, it looks like a past paper question to me. Okay, there are two more questions to go. It says 5 clocks at a reception show the local times in 5 different cities at the same moment. Okay, so they're showing you the time differences. Rosaida had breakfast at 800 in Moscow. What is the local time in Sydney? Okay, so if it's 800 in Moscow, what's the time difference between Moscow and Sydney? 6 hours ahead. So I'm going to add 6 hours to it. If I add 6 hours to it, adding to a 24-hour clock isn't a problem. It becomes 1400 hours. It becomes 1400 hours. When you have 12-hour clocks, then it's a little challenge. Why? Because you need to switch back again at 12 rather than, continue with the counting. Okay, so that was simple. Elias catches a plane in London and flies to New York. He leaves London at 11:30 local time. Okay, so let's see what the time difference between this and that is. So New York is behind London actually. Okay, so I'll have to count back if I'm keeping London time. So my clock is on London time. The flight time is 8 hours and 10 minutes. So I'm going to add 8 hours and 10 minutes to this. So plus 8 hours. So that makes it 19:30 and plus 10 minutes. So that makes it 19:40 London time. Okay, what is the local time in New York when he lands? So 2:38 and 7:38, which means 5 hours behind. So I'm going to go 5 hours behind. 5 hours behind is 14:40 New York time. Okay, so that is what you need to understand. Okay, that's the end of this video. I will be back with another video more about time later on. Thank you for watching.